Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Millionaire Bob Morning Podcast Show. We're here today to speak about resiliency and the power of mindset. We have Annie Toro Lopez with us. She's a cookbook author, chronic illness advocate, and inspirational voice in the celiac and autoimmune communities. Diagnosed with SLE in her 20s, Annie's journey of resilience led her to a remarkable milestone, a negative ANA after 20 years of managing autoimmune challenges. In 2023, after the profound loss of her sister and best friend, Annie was diagnosed with celiac disease, an experience she transformed into an opportunity to support others through food and education. Her second cookbook, Simply Gluten Free, Real Ingredients for Everyday Life, reflects her passion for approachable, nourishing recipes that empower people living with chronic conditions to reclaim joy in the kitchen. Annie speaks candidly about navigating health challenges, transforming mindset, and finding strength in community, inspiring audiences to embrace possibility even in the face of adversity. Welcome to the show, Annie.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate your podcast and what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here with us today, sharing your story, giving us some insight about your journey. I like to think that our listeners can learn from each and every one of our guests, no matter what it may be. You are the first person that I have had on this show to speak about chronic illness. And even with being a show about entrepreneurship, speaking with entrepreneurs and founders, a lot of the time, our family is sick, our family suffers from chronic diseases. If we work too hard, we work our way into a chronic illness. So yeah, thank you for coming on the show today speaking about that.
Yeah, I'm so glad for you to give me the opportunity. Thank you.
All right. So if you could, just meeting a person for the first time, tell us a little bit about who Annie Toro Lopez is and what she does and who she serves.
Yeah, so I always say I've worn a lot of hats. So I've done a lot of different things. But I currently am working as an advocate for people who suffer from autoimmune conditions, and it's very related to burnout. So I think that that's something that your audience could also relate to because they can be very related. Um, to give you a little background, so I was raised in Nebraska, in the heartland, and in the agricultural world. I come from a family of food professionals, and I that has always been a part of my life and who I am, and knowing how to literally walk out to a garden and pick what you eat, bring it inside and cook it. Um, so learned very I don't remember learning to cook. It was just always a part of my identity. Um, so as I then I lived in San Diego for a while, and that was actually a really difficult time for me. Um, but I all taught me power of mindset, the power of being able to take control of your own voice in your head and redirect it. And so then later I moved to Colorado. I live in Elizabeth on the high prairie. And I moved to Colorado, and I was I if your listeners are old enough, if they're Jen Jones like me, they will be. Um, I worked for Walden Books. My degree is in English literature. Um, and I worked for Walden Books here in Denver, and books saved me as always. Diagnosed with lupus. So in my early 20s, and I'd had symptoms. And the thing with lupus is it's really not it's not like a blood test diagnosis. It's a like a checklist. So you meet certain criteria. But then my doctor was like, after being I had like transient conditions, so things like I had hyperthyroidism, and then we went back later and it was gone. And she's like, that's just not how it works. So she said, I want to test you for lupus. And I didn't even know what it was. It's systemic lupus erythematosus for your listeners who aren't familiar. I had no idea what it was. So I was just like, okay, whatever. So came back as a positive ANA, which was a definitive test. 93% of people with lupus have a positive ANA. Not everyone, but when it came back, I remember the look on her face when she walked in the door, and she was just, I could see she was like shocked. And she was like, I've never seen this before. Like, it's so high. And I was very sick. Like it's the thing with, so lupus, the ANA is an anti-nuclear antibody. So an antibody, of course, the body's job is to attack whatever it's programmed to attack. And so with a positive ANA, so like that's when we get a vaccination, and like that, is specific for virus or that, illness. But with a positive ANA, your own body is making an antibody against your own cells. So it's literally called an anti-nuclear antibody, and its job is to attack and kill the nucleus of your cells. So it literally is trying to kill you, and you're making it yourself. And for me, that just didn't add up at all. Why? How is this happening? Why is this happening? Why is my own body, attacking itself? And when someone's diagnosed, it's a life sentence. They'll tell you you'll have it all your life, and it will kill you eventually. And like, you feel that. Well, I had it for I wasn't having that. I wasn't doing that. I wasn't living that way. I'm like, And I don't want anyone to feel like if you don't do this or you don't achieve this or you can't, whatever, like that's not a failure. It's not a fault. It's a very complicated disease. So after 20 years of learning, managing, and using a lot of different tools, I reversed it. And I received my first negative ANA when I was 41 years old. And I've not had a positive since. And I am completely symptom-free, which for people who have lupus, who live with that disease, it's so difficult. It's so difficult. And I've been symptom-free for 20 years. And, I've told doctors in the past, some doctors, and I've said, I've reversed lupus, or, and they're like, well, no, you haven't. It's just remission. I don't buy that either. And I'm not the only one who's done it. It's complicated, but it's hopeful. And so yeah, that's really what I'm trying to talk about for people who live with autoimmune illnesses that feel hopeless, because it can feel really hopeless. I want to help people with that. I don't want people to feel hopeless. It's not hopeless. It's just not.
Okay. All right. That is a heck of a thing to promote and kind of put yourself out there on and coach others on as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally understand your message. That is,
I appreciate that.
yeah, that's pretty awesome. What are some of the tools that you speak of?
Yeah. So there were a lot. Like, it's not like it's a complicated disease. The first thing that helped me the most was going to therapy. It was actually after it wasn't recommended that I have children, because if the antibody is attacking the nucleus of your body's cells, it can just as easily attack the nucleus of a fetus cell. So it's a very high risk. And I didn't understand that at the time. Let me say that first. Like I really didn't get that. But that was the case. And so very high risk pregnancies. I went through a very difficult pregnancy with my son. I have two children. They're both healthy and I love them to death. And but after I had my son, I couldn't stop crying. Like, and I think a lot of women can relate to that. Like it's a lot of things. And so I called at this point, I'm like, I called my obstetrician's office. I was just like, this has to stop. Like, I can't function. And I was really fortunate because I had a nurse practitioner who said, sometimes therapy helps, right? So I was very fortunate to do that. I think for people who have autoimmune, illnesses, part of what's happening. There's a lot. Is what I was talking about with like changing your mindset, right? Which applies to so much of life. It helps that, what we're talking about here as far as like building success, right? Being an entrepreneur and like working on the things. And that takes a certain mindset. So I learned that. I was lucky to learn that from someone who was willing to teach me. So that was the first thing. And then my degree's in English, so I'm a researcher and I like research. And didn't make sense to me. Like why would your body attack itself? Like, why would that even happen? And what's actually going on? Like physiologically, like I wanted to know in my body, what is happening? Why is this happening? So I started, learning about different ways of healing and not just like Western medicine, but, looking into some Eastern philosophies as well. And I discovered visualization. Like I went in, learned about visualization. And so visualization was really powerful for me. And visualization is proven to heal, as is self-compassion. So I had this whole like thing in my head. Like I had this whole like cartoon in my head. And I grew up in Nebraska, right? I grew up on horseback, literally wrangling cattle, literally doing the things. So in my mind, I had like, and it was sort of a cartoon, and I rode like my steed, my horse, and it was actually a T cell. And it's very interesting because just recently, there were two people, and I don't recall their names, awarded the Nobel Prize for discovering how T cells are guide cells. They'll repress and that was like recent. So I was doing this in the 90s. I was visualizing T cells to help myself heal.
Annie, if I could ask you just real quick. Of
course, please.
Are you any part Native American?
No, it's funny that you asked, because my husband is fully indigenous Native to this area. His genes are right here. So, but no, I'm a total mutt. I'm like everything. I did get my whatever the 30, whatever the genetic ancestry. That's what it was. And no, I'm a full mutt. I'm everything, like all of the things, all of the places. Yeah.
Okay.
But
I asked that because I thought maybe that's where the visualization came from.
Yeah. And some of that's just like being willing and open to different ways of thinking than what you're used to, right? Like we're so entrenched in Western medicine that we don't think about things like, and I think I'm in Colorado. Psilocybin has been very successful in treating so many things, like, you know, just having um, trauma and healing trauma, and you know, actually creates new neural pathways, which allows our mind to not keep repeating the things that we've been repeating that aren't working for us. And so there's a lot of work here in Colorado in psilocybin therapy. It's like, it's remarkable and healing for helping people heal. So, yeah. And I was going to say too, that I mean, I think that you would appreciate also that there's a disproportionate number of of Black women who have lupus. Disproportionate. It affects more, and it affects women way more than men. And I know I think your audience is mostly men, but I could be wrong. But it does affect women way more than men.
I had a
70%.
cousin pass away from lupus.
So
And
you
you know,
totally.
the crazy thing about it is, even with it affecting like my community, we still don't know a lot about it. Unless it's like
Oh,
someone that's near and dear to you,
right.
it's still a mystery type of disease.
You know, and the reality is, I think that's an excellent point, because the reality is it's kind of a mystery still, like within the medical community, right? Like I chose, and I want to say here, I am not a doctor and I am not giving advice. But what I chose, because I was so sick from the drugs I was taking. So I was a vet tech too. I said I wore a lot of hats, right? I was a vet tech. When I got diagnosed, I was working as a vet tech, in fact, and I had all over my legs and I wasn't able to walk very well. And just things were happening that didn't make sense. So, you know, when I was first diagnosed, you know, you don't know anything. Like, you trust the doctors to know what they're doing. And what I quickly realized, though, is that they really don't understand. They really don't understand why your body would attack. Like, why would it, right? So I learned that pretty quickly. And so I turned to other methods, you know, like you asking if I'm Native American. Like, I just was open to the ideas that, like, maybe, you know, Eastern medicine, or, you know, what Eastern medicine has something, right? I have seen a functional doctor. I did decide, I was very fortunate. I will say I had a doctor that listens. And if you don't have if you have lupus or you have any, and your doctor isn't listening to you or they're not hearing you, get a new doctor.
Right.
Don't stay with someone who doesn't hear you and doesn't listen to you or dismisses you. Nobody deserves that. Nobody deserves that. Get a different doctor. I went through 4 doctors recently just because my insurance had to change. But I was like, not till I'm happy. And now I'm very happy. She's awesome. She's awesome. She hears me.
Yeah.
So, but I was under a doctor's care. So I want to say that first. But what really happened was that I wasn't sure if I was sick from all these awful, horrible drugs that they put you on, or if my body was like, what is happening in my body? Talk to me. I want to know if I'm throwing up in the middle of the night, it's because my body is, you know, I need to know what's going on. So that was huge here, you know, learning that.
That is tiring as well. Like, I could see that mentally draining just because you don't know what's going on. You know, as you're explaining to me, I am thinking of allergies, hay fever. And because I suffer from that. And like you say,
also,
there's no cure. They kind of act like they don't know what's going on. There are some shots that you can take, but yet and still, it's kind of, if it's get to the point that it can be life changing, debilitating.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I used to take my students, so I taught 8th grade, and I used to take my students to Washington, D.C. every year. And I finally figured out that it was juniper that was but I would come home and I would get sick. I would get bronchitis. One time it turned into pneumonia. So you're 100% right. Like, it's not just allergies. And you're also right to make that connection, because allergies are also autoimmune. And it's really your body, like, way over reacting. It's your nervous system just like overreacting to something that is not a threat, right? Pollen is not a threat. It's not going to kill you. It's really not going to hurt you. And those of us who aren't allergic to A, B, C, right? We don't react to blah, blah, whatever it is, fill in the blank, even though you do.
Right.
And your body is just like high alert. It's like going off, all the bells, all the whistles, and there's no reason for it. It's sort of like completing the stress cycle, right? So, which is really important. Let me just label this because it's important. Completing the stress cycle is a very important part of learning to manage your lupus. Like, we get into a situation that might be like someone cut you off in traffic, right? And so, you get mad. It's like everything gets mad, and all the chemicals flow, and all the rages. And when we get into that kind of situation, people respond by it, and we're programmed for this, like, from forever, right? We're programmed to respond in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So, fight is obvious, flight is obvious, freeze is when your brain freezes, you know what to do, and you can't move forward, and you can't do anything in the eyes of, what we've been programmed from, which would be, right, the eyes of whatever, the tiger is usually what the metaphor that you hear. And then there's fawn. So that would be like showing your belly, right? It's like, I'm good. And as in human terms, it's like pleasing. So like people who are in like an abusive relationship, right? And the way that you try to navigate that is by pleasing. So, or people who are just people pleasers, usually then your instinct is to go to fawn. But one way or another, all those chemicals get trapped in your body. We get what's called flooded. We get flooded, right? So it all takes over. And if we don't move that out of our body, movement is how we finish a stress cycle. You're going to run from the tiger. You're going to fight the tiger. You're going to, freeze, and then you might get eaten that way. And then, or I'm not a threat. I'm not a threat. So, we have to complete that stress cycle, because otherwise everything gets trapped in there, and it triggers our immune system, because, there are things going on. But there aren't really things going on, and there's not really a tiger, but your immune system is completely confused. And so it starts attacking itself. And so if we complete the stress cycle, and that's usually through movement. So it can be, you go for a 10-minute walk, or you can dance is great. Like, if you can dance, that's really good. Because that helps a lot of things. But some people are too achy and too sore to do that. So it doesn't have to be, complicated. You don't have to go to the gym. You can even shake your body for 5 minutes. Just shake your body, everything, for 5 minutes. And that will complete the stress cycle too. Like, so it's doable. Yeah, it's doable, but it's imperative to complete the stress cycle, because our gut, mind, body, gut is extremely connected. And when I was trying to heal, working on healing, I was really learning about mind body connection. And at the time, no one was talking about this. Now there's a a book that a lot of people talk about, called The Body Keeps the Score. And it talks about some of it's hard to read. It puts us in uncomfortable places because the truth is many of the women who have had this, who have lupus or have autoimmune, have been abused. It's just part of the that trauma response again. So that it's that response in your body or the voice in your head. But we learn how to calm the nervous system through the mind, body, and gut. So healing, that's
you brought
like,
up gut.
yep.
And I guess this was a good segue into it. But so eating and your cookbook, is that the reason for the cookbook?
Yes and no. Yes, in that my first cookbook is a regional Colorado green chili cookbook. It is not gluten-free. But I'll show you. It's that's this. That's my first cookbook. And this was done as through a grant with the Creative Aging Project. My second cookbook came from in 2023 I lost my sister and my dearest lifelong friend 6 days apart. So it was like, yeah. And then 3 weeks later, I was diagnosed with celiac disease, which is also an autoimmune condition that has a huge genetic component, more than most of them, but it's a huge genetic component. So, having celiac, I had to learn how to navigate the world gluten-free. And it has to be, it's not like a fad, and it's not, it literally, in the presence of gluten and the smallest amount of gluten, your body attacks itself. And so what it does is, well, there's a laundry list of the things that celiac causes, and that can be secondary to celiac, including 3 kinds of cancer. And ADHD. It's interesting, the mental component is very interesting. So I was flattened, I'm not gonna lie. After losing my sister and my friend, and then I'm a food writer, right? That's what I do. And so after losing my sister and my friend, I was just really, I was just flattened. I was really lonely. I'd lost my people. And so I, again, applied the things that I've learned about resilience and about, changing the voice in my head and learning, you can't spend all your time in feeling sorry for yourself, right? So I joined a celiac group, and that was really helpful. And what I kept seeing, is people were like, now what do I do? I don't even know I don't know how to feed myself. And I was a cookbook author. I spent my first month when I found out I had celiac, eating bars, meal bars. I didn't know what to eat. I had to clean out my whole kitchen. Came back from my sister's funeral, and my daughter had moved out, which was good. It was a good thing. I was it was planned, but it was just, it was just hard. And so, and I didn't have my people. So, I joined this group, and someone recommended a group for women over 50. And I joined that, but it was still I need people, I need connection. And so I started my own group here in Denver called Dawn, Denver Area Women's Network. And I started that, and I just did a Facebook group. And within, I don't know, less than a week, we had 150 members.
Wow.
And because, loneliness, this is a whole nother thing. It's a whole nother thing, but loneliness is an epidemic. in our country, and it was all in our world, not our country. And it was already that way before the pandemic. But a lot of people want connection. So I started this group, and now we have like 500, and we meet every week. And I have it's a great group, and it was a lifesaver, like it was a life changer. But what I kept hearing in my celiac groups was, I don't know how to feed myself. And the thing that really like hurt my heart was my 14-year-old or my 7-year-old or whatever was just diagnosed with, celiac, and I don't know how to cook I don't even know how to cook for my family. So I knew I wanted to write a second cookbook, and I had, it's like I was like called to do it, and I started doing research on, for the cookbooks. And what I realized was that 90% of cookbooks are for baking. Gluten-free cookbooks are for baking. And baking's great and all, but people are like, I need to feed my family. I need to feed my kids. So I wrote, I just sort of sat down and I did it. So here, this is my book, my cookbook, and then here's but it's everything. It's like, there's appetizers for like what to take to my friend's house to watch the game, right? Because I'd hear that a lot. Like, I don't even, what can I even take? What can I for a party? And then there's dips and dressings, because sometimes it's really hard to find hidden gluten. It's a thing. So, and then I have like sauces, and I have soups and entrees. Oh, chili rellenos. Hell yeah. That's one of my favorites. I love chili rellenos. Ribs. Because, the reality is a lot of people now, a lot of people don't know how to cook. I mean, and that's it's just sort of a cultural thing. But when you find out you have celiac and you're really cut off from most sources of your food that you're used to, and if you know how to prepare food, you're lost. And it's sort of important, right? Like, you kind of got to eat. So I felt like I was able to take what I grew up with and what I knew from, the world of being raised in the world of agriculture, that, everything in here this is just fresh ingredients. I had a group of 100 recipe testers on Facebook when I was writing the book. And so they tested things. And one of the things I heard a lot was, we can just go to the grocery store and there's nothing special here. There's nothing like, oh, I need this special ingredient or I need this thing. It's like, no, it's just like, vegetables and, meat. I mean, made in delicious ways. So it's naturally gluten-free. It's not, and so the feedback on it has been great. We did a book tour that was super, super, super fun. So that was awesome. So yeah, that's the long version of that's where that came from.
Oh, that's great. That's great. You constantly sound like you're constantly helping and constantly getting the feedback from the people that wants the feedback. So that's really good. This being the Millionaire Bob Morning Show, I have to ask, have you monetized your group, or do you offer courses, and have you built anything surrounding it?
Working on that. I appreciate the question. Yeah, I'm really, really working on that. So I'm building a community in the platform school, and it's called Autoimmune Empowerment. It's my community. I just started it 2 weeks ago, I think, and I have 30 members. So that's not bad. I have one in my class, into my community. I have 2 guides available for you right away. And one is called the 7-Day Reset for autoimmune wellness. So it covers so you're learning, it covers doing a body scan. the first exercise, the first day, and they're only like 5-minute exercises. It's nothing like, it's going to take a lot of time. But before you get out of bed, just to do a quick scan of your body and, listen to your body. What does it need? And so each day is a small exercise. I'll just make little shifts, we're not doing anything that's like huge because, lupus is overwhelming. It's so difficult to live with. And so we want to just be supportive and not, we're not pushing. So I just started it. I love the platform. So excited for where that can go. I have 12 guides planned. So that's the first one. The second one is 5 conversations you can have with your immune system. And then the third one is from self-loathing to self-loving, changing the voice in your head. And then the fourth one is a 7-day meal plan. So when you come into school and when you come into my community, you've got two guides right there and available. And if you would like to go deeper or you want to have personal, because I will do a Q&A session, then that's part of this of a subscription plan. Mm-hmm. And I'm also working on, we're actually working on, I have a house in Trinidad, which is Colorado, not the country. Not quite that exciting, but it's cute. It's a cute town. But I want to sell that, and I want to go back to Nebraska, which is where I'm from. There's a lake there called Lake McConaughey, and it's like beautiful. It's in the sandhills and like white sand beaches. It's sort of a hidden gem, but it's a destination. And I'm working with a group to build a retreat there for people who have autoimmune conditions that we can, and this group is amazing. So we have one of the people who's a friend, and I'm honored to call her friend. Her name is Ebony, and she's a Harvard graduate, and her story is amazing. But she gave the keynote speech for the graduation the year after she graduated. So she's kind of something, And then one is a former student who I'm so honored to be working with. And she's working on her MBA. So she's just like so totally qualified. And then one is my niece, who is a business lawyer. So she's like a very good person to have on my team. And my daughter is now she's a fromagier. She's a cheesemonger, and she's happier than I've ever seen her in her life. But she is a former massage therapist. So she kind of has that whole, understanding as well. So yeah, we're working on that. I'm super excited about that. We're looking for investors too, if anybody is interested. So yeah. So yeah, so go ahead, please.
I was going to ask, where do they find you? Do they follow you online? If the next step,
sure.
what's the next step?
So I have, everything is under my name. All of my branding is under my name. So if you search for Annie Toro Lopez, you will find me. So I've given I have a YouTube channel. So you can find me there. And I'm pretty active on Facebook. I just hired a virtual assistant. And so she's starting a professional page, which is still Annie Toro Lopez Speaker. And then my website is annietorolopez.com. So yeah, you can find me. And please, if you have any kind of autoimmune condition, join us in our community at school. That is the autoimmune empowerment, it's called. It's such a great community. I love the vibe. I love how we help each other. And, it's just, we haven't even been doing it for very long, but I think it's going to be a really good community for people who need encouragement and are looking for something besides Western medicine,
Right.
and not that we, I'm not, it all has to work together. It all works together.
Yeah. Got it. All right. Well, Annie, I want to thank you for coming on our show today, speaking with us about lupus and about just autoimmune deficiencies, autoimmune diseases. That's something we need to keep our eye close to and our ear to the street. So thank you for telling us about your journey and giving people who may be suffering from it an outlet, a classroom, go to school, follow.
Right.
And it just so happened you're a teacher, right? So now you're
Yes,
on school.
I know it was perfect. I was like, I think this is gonna work.
Yeah. So much success to everything that you do.
Thank
And thanks
you.
again for coming
I
here.
appreciate that.
To
Yeah,
anyone
I
that's
hope to
out
see
there
you.
listening, you guys
Yeah, yeah,
remember,
yeah. Like drop in, let me know how you found me from here.
that's right. That's right. And we'll put
Yeah,
all your information in the show notes so they can get in touch with you as well.
absolutely.
If anyone is
Perfect.
interested. You guys out there, you remember to keep making moves, make money, and make meaningful memories. Until next time, we'll see you later.